Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mike's, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Hello.
Ruben Bressler.
Hi.
You are snazzed right out.
I am. I decided to dress up for the occasion of the Vampires episode.
So for those who are listening to the podcast, explain your attire this evening.
Oh, I am dressed to the nines myself. I have a bow tie. I have my tuxedo on. I've got my nice, what are these called? Like it's the buttons that aren't buttons, like the fancy buttons that you put in your shirt. Yeah, those.
Couplings.
Well, no, those are like wrist things.
Oh,
but
okay.
These are like in the shirt.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know
so
what that is.
That's so famous, I have no idea what it is.
I don't know what they're called either, but I have them.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right. Well, we're also going to begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most elegant and letting us know what card we didn't choose as one of our top 10 knights. Ruben?
Well, Aaron is a big fan of telling people that they'd better work. And so Ryan Stallenwork is going to be this week's winner because he put in the work in our comments section this week. I put in a word for the Swiss Army Knight, Knight of Autumn. She's not going to be a main deck powerhouse, but is a huge sideboard addition to all decks that can use her colors. A lone missionary against burn, a reclamation sage when you need it, and a 4/3 for 3 when you don't. Thank God she isn't an elf or a human.
Yeah, this card was this card has been really impressive since it came out. I feel like I've seen it in standard and modern for sure, and was really sort of the the thermometer. We kind of suspected that there was going to be like a best of one situation happening. I think Evan, you had predicted that Arena was kind of moving in that direction, and we had noticed that a lot of modal cards were starting to come out. This being one of them, because when you're only playing best of one, you don't have a sideboard, and so you need to have cards in your main deck that are versatile to be able to handle different threats. And this card is just a great example of that. It's almost never a dead card.
Yeah, this is one of the most exciting cards to show up from Guilds of Ravnica. For those who don't know, it's a green, a white, and a generic mana for a 2/1 rare Dryad Knight. And when it enters the battlefield, you choose one, putting 2+1/+1 counters on it, destroy target artifact or enchantment, or you gain 4 life. So it catches you back up in life, it gets you a big creature on the board, or it's destroying their annoying artifact or enchantment right on cue. So this card kind of does all of it.
Yeah, and when you combine this with the green toolbox decks, like with your Green Sun Zenith, with your, your Court of Callings or what have you, this is just a great tool to have.
Yeah, it's sort of the classic, you're kind of overpaying for every option, but when you have all 3 options, it's great.
Yeah, was recently co-opted by Autumn Burchett. That is what Autumn calls their fans or their audience, Knights of Autumn. And so very nice that it came out around the same time.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for participating in the show. Please contact Erin before she blocks you on all her social media platforms.
Right now, I'm thinking about it.
She's busy. She's a busy lady. Blocking. Is that Bob Ross? Back again to the block.
Exactly.
Special thanks to CoolStuffInc.com for supporting this giveaway, of course. But now we get to talk about our top 10 vampires. I'll be active and then totally inactive for a while, and then back to active if I have a whole bunch of 4 hires down near the bottom of my list.
Oh, Lord.
So that's going to be exciting. That said, let's go ahead and take a look at number 10. Ruben, what is your number 10?
Ooh, I get to start things off. Well, this is one of the more exciting vampires. Got a lot of play in Standard. I actually am highlighting a bunch of Magic's worst sets, I think, in my list. And this one's no different because we're starting things off with Dragon's Maze and Blood Baron of Vizkopa at number 10. 3 colorless white-black gets you a mythic rare 4/4 vampire from Dragon's Maze. Lifelink, pro-white and pro-black. And as long as you have 30 or more life and an opponent has 10 or less life, Blood Baron of Vizkopa gets +6/+6 and has flying. Was very popular in sort of the just chase rare controls, 4-color control decks. Also Orzhov control started picking up in popularity as that standard format came to an end. And just one of the scariest things that you could play against a lot of the best decks in that format.
This thing that stands out to me the most about this card is the art. The art is just hilarious and disturbing at the same time. I think this has been on one of my previous top 10 lists, so that's why I didn't include it on list list tonight. But I love just looking at the art, and I feel like every time I do, I notice something that I didn't catch before, where it's like, are there naked ladies in cages? Yep. And then is there like, what is going on? And it is just, it's just a scene. And the card is very good as well.
The card was also one of those classic, like, no one really paid attention to it. I mean, let's face it, no one really paid attention to a lot of things in Dragon's Maze. Mm-hmm. But Blood Baron of Vizkopa in particular was one of those cards that by the time it kind of got the spotlight, it was the perfect thing for the format that it was being played in. It was sort of the mirror breaker type card, as I recall, in sort of like the Aristocrats decks and whatnot. Is that correct?
Well, even then, it was like everyone was using Azorius Charms and Detention Spheres, and it was like, welp, and or they were doing, turn and burn, or turn and burn's fine. But I mean, the bottom line is the removal of the format at the time lined up really well with this, to where you really needed to look for like the turn and burns to like deal with it, because everything else that people were using just didn't work.
And it's weird to look back on a card that was made in Dragon's Maze, and honestly, it kind of seems super underpowered compared to the rocket launchers we're using these days of like a 5 mana 4/4. That's all you get for your 5 mana.
Just gets lava coiled.
Right. Like, okay. Thanks for overpaying for your 4/4.
Wow.
Right. Or turned into an elk.
Yeah. Nice elk you got.
Yeah.
Blood Baron of Elk. Aaron, what's number 10?
When we went back to Innistrad for Shadows over Innistrad, we got the chance to see things Eldrazi-ized. You got Eldrazi werewolves, you got Eldrazi octopus, and it was really, really cool to see what Emrakul's influence on the plane was going to do. But what really sold it for me was seeing her influence on the usual creatures. And my number 10 really reflects this. My number 10 is Valdarin Pariah. And if you flip it over, it's Abolisher of Bloodlines. Right. So it's a little 2-for-1. So we're starting off with Valdarin Pariah, which is 3 colorless and 2 black. It's a creature type vampire horror. 3 power, 3 toughness with flying. You can sacrifice 3 other creatures to transform Valdarin Pariah. Or you can pay 3 black and it's madness cost, which means if you discard this card, discard it in exile. And when you do, cast it for its madness cost, which I love. If you flip it, you then have an Abolisher of Bloodlines, which is a 6/5 with flying. And when this creature transforms into Abolisher of Bloodlines, target opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. So you're sacrificing 3 creatures of your own to get this. And then when it flips over, you make your opponent sacrifice 3 creatures. This card is terrifying. It has arms where its legs should be. The cape opens up and it has that flesh, that lattice there that we're used to from the Eldrazi. You look at the art and there's just appendages where they shouldn't be. It's very ghastly. But this card is terrifying, and it's sold out on certain websites. I'm not really sure what that means, but this was a really great way to kind of show people what Emrakul could do to things that we thought we'd already seen everything on. How you can't really do it. There's only so many ways you can do a vampire or do a werewolf, and this was a really terrifying spin on that.
Yeah, I think if this was a card that was, again, just looking at the stats, right? If it was a 4/4 flyer, a 4/5, or maybe a 3/5, something that was just big enough to get around some of the removal that was being played at the time. Because, yes, you can sacrifice 3 other creatures at instant speed, but if you didn't always have 3 other creatures, you wanted to be able to stand on its own a little bit, and cheating it out for 3 mana kind of sounds exciting, but it wasn't really reliably done. So it didn't see a lot.
I have seen this used in some kind of Aristocrats strategies as a sideboard option a lot of the time, particularly against those green collected company kind of decks. It's just a terrifying card that can have a huge impact on the right kind of game if it matches up with the removal of the format.
This is definitely a card that sort of creates stories, in that, I did this, which made me discard a card. I did the Pariah, I sacrificed 3 creatures, or I madnessed it out, and then, blah, 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 and blew up the board, and that was fantastic. So it's definitely one of those options. But for my number 10, I wanted to make sure that, and sometimes I do this, when we do top X or top Y, I want to make sure that there's certain things that are in my list. I want to make sure this was in my top 10. It's not the greatest creature. It's not even a tribute. In fact, it's one of the oldest creatures. In fact, it's from Alpha itself. The original, the OG vampire. What vampire did they show? What vampire did they put on deck boxes, on card boxes, on collector binders? They put Senior Vampire from Anson Maddox. Senior Vampire is 2 black, 3 generic mana for a 4/4 flyer that has, whenever a creature dealt damage by Senior Vampire this turn dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Senior Vampire. And let me tell you, back in the day, This was Cadillac stats. This was like, they stopped printing this for a minute because like, whoa, dog, you gone too far in the value section and we can't have it anymore. Let's see. They took it away for how long here? They took it away until from 4th edition, they didn't print it again until 9th edition. It's just insane to think of, this card like never got counters. Even back in the day. It didn't matter.
4/4. What are you going to do? Block a 1/5? Get out of here.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I remember being at a pre-release for like one of the 2012, 2013, whatever sets, and it was an uncommon at the time. And I remember some kids were like, ew, this card is terrible. I was like, listen here, you little bastards. Like, you know, because we remember, that was a card that you had to deal with. Yeah. And that kind of set the tone for vampires. You know, a lot of the vampires we're going to talk about do have that sort of, kill something, drain something, get a counter. That's how vampirism was portrayed in the mechanics of the card.
Right. Now, sort of these days, it would be if it dealt damage to any creature, period, it should be getting counters. Back then, that was just seen as like crazy overpowered. White had Sarah Angel, black had Senior Vampire. That was the big showdown.
To be fair, I mean, this is... it's air elemental, but better in a color that doesn't really get big flyers. And so Senior Vampire would still be quite the good limited uncommon in most sets.
Oh, you'd still play it in limited for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Last saw play, at least in limited, in Magic Origins. But it wasn't the welcome 2016 to 2017 decks. So that means it was technically legal for standard or whatever.
There you go.
Which is kind of silly. But again, this was one of those cards that I cannot have top 10 vampires and not see Senior Vampire on the list. All right. So that will be the last you'll hear from me for the next 4 choices. My number 9 through number 6 are all higher on someone else's list. So moving here to number 9. Aaron, what's your number 9?
Up until recently, Black had a really hard time dealing with planeswalkers. And I remember when we got Heroes Downfall, it was such a big deal because before then you really had to like try to Thoughtseize them, try to duress them. You really had to you really had to use clunky cards to try to deal with it. It just wasn't what you wanted to be doing. But we got Heroes Downfall and it was great. And then we got this card, which was in Commander 2015. And we've seen cards like Thrall Parasite. We've seen Black move on to try to attack counters, which I think is really, really cool. And no card embodies this more than my number 9, which is Thief of Blood. So Thief of Blood is 4 colorless and 2 black. It's a creature type vampire, just a little 1/1. You're a 6 for a 1 what? So it's flying. As Thief of Blood enters the battlefield, remove all counters from all permanents. Thief of Blood enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter, and for each counter removed this way, everything, creatures, planeswalkers, artifacts, whatever's countered, just slurps them all up. And then you put the counters on it. And I love playing this card. I had it in my Daxos deck. Daxos was the first precon that I bought that got me to play Commander. And I love just waiting for the right time and slamming this baby and just watching things go. And it's like, oh, here's my 13/13. Thanks.
And like, it's killing all of their planeswalkers, right?
Exactly. It's so good. And it's just another neat way to do vampires of, you can kill something and put a counter on it. You can drain a thing. Oh no, just slurp it up. I think it's great.
This is one of those cards that's kind of just perfectly designed for a multiplayer format. It's expensive, but it doesn't matter because it hits so much, it does so much. And like 1v1, you're never going to be excited about this. 1v1, this could cost 3 mana. You'd be like, probably wouldn't
and it
play
doesn't care what counters either. This is loyalty counters. This is -1/-1 counters. This is charge counters. This is whatever you got. This thing will take it, and this thing can get really big.
That is just super exciting for as a casual card.
Yeah,
Ruben, what's your number 9?
So my number 10 was a Ravnica vampire from the Orzhov Guild. The Orzhov vampires are your traditional I want blood, blood baron. Vampires, but the more interesting vampires of Ravnica to me are the Dimir vampires, who drain psychic energy and youth and mental abilities from their victims. And those vampires, some of whom you may have heard of, such as Mirko Vosk or Zadek, who founded House Dimir, they are Muroi vampires. And the card Muroi also is a vampire and has won a Pro Tour and is a blue vampire, which I love and I thought was deserving of a spot on the list.
How do you spell this card again?
Moroi.
Oh, I. Oh my God, I've never gotten that one.
Right.
Morai.
Ravnica City of Guilds saw this first printed as an uncommon, and it was one of the most bomb uncommons you could open in that limited format. For 4 mana, you got a 4/4 flyer, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life. So just a 4/4 flyer for 4, but in Dimir, it's just an aggressively costed, aggressive Dimir card that, alongside fellow Ravnica vampire, Skeletal Vampire, was part of the bug control deck that Tomohiro Kaji won Pro Tour Charleston with, alongside teammates Tomoharu Saito and Shota Yasuoka. And yeah, I mean, it's just it's one that's easy to forget, but I like the flavor of it, and I like that it's a blue vampire and it's a limited all-star, and I wanted to talk about it.
This was super exciting back in the day. Now, you got to remember, when they previewed Watch Wolf, like, we lost our minds, y'all. 2 mana for a 3/3 with no drawbacks, nothing. Holy cow, we're in a totally new world here. And then all of a sudden they're like, 4 mana, 4/4 flyer. And you're just like, for 4 mana? What? We'd never seen such wild craziness in our life before. This was super duper push stats at the time. At the time, this guy was an all-star, not only unlimited, but it was like, how do we make it work and constructed? They finally kind of sort of did before we sort of moved on from there and really saw that Skeletal Vampire is so good, you don't really need to lose life to Mirai. But regardless, again, this, in its day, this card was super exciting and really sweet. That said, again, my pick's higher. Maybe you guys go to it soon. Move here to number 8. Ruben, what's number 8?
My number 8 is a multi-format all-star to this day. It sees play in every format in which it and Dark Depths are legal. Spoiler alert, it's Vampire Hexmage.
Nice.
Originally an uncommon from Zendikar, reprinted a couple of times. It's black for a Vampire Shaman. It is a 2/1 first striker that has sacrifice Vampire Hexmage, remove all counters from target permanent. Aaron briefly touched on the period of time in which Black had a difficult time dealing with Planeswalkers. One of the early ways they experimented with that was Vampire Hexmage, which was sort of a scalpel to try to give Black a way to deal with Planeswalkers. What they did instead was give Black a 2-card combo that made a 20/20 indestructible and flying very, very quickly, thanks to Dark Depths, the formerly junk rare from Cold Snap. And, you know, of course, even now in Legacy, you see Dark Depths decks doing a whole bunch of stuff, Bug Still decks. And also this card was just good when it was printed in Standard, in just your generic Rakdos-colored Vampires aggro decks. And whenever it's been printed, it's seen play, and it is a very good card.
And it also exiles my bridges.
It does do that.
Oh, no.
It does do that as well. This, again... Well, first of all, do know one of the things. First, Zendikar was the fastest. I've agreed. I think to this day, the fastest limited environment of all time. So this just fit right in. 2 mana, 2/1 first striker. Okay, sure. Everything's super powerful at low mana costs. Secondly, it was the like sort of dipping the toe in like, how do we kill Planeswalkers? Like, there got to a point where I was asking R&D, I was like, are we going to have a card that says destroy target Planeswalker? Because at the time, that was kind of crazy sauce. Like, you know, Planeswalkers just showed up, you know, 3 or 4 sets ago. It's like, you know, we're kind of like, we're going to rush into things. But it's like, no, man, eventually you're going to need destroy target Planeswalker. And we got it, I think, 3 or 4 sets or so later. But Vampire Hexmage was the first toe in the water. Oops, they broke extended. But
well, the toe went into the ice water, like the frozen water of Merit Blade.
Yeah, it did.
And it did dominate Extended for the last year and a half that Extended was a format.
It's true. All right. Aaron, what's your number 8?
My number 8 was one of the vampires from Ixalan, and I loved the way that they did these sort of vampire conquistadors. I thought it was really, really brilliant. This is art by Seb McKinnon. This is one of the playmats that he was offering in his recent Kickstarter. I love this card. I love this sort of Bob type effect with a twist. The art is really beautiful. The card's going for $14 right now. I don't know why. Like, I don't think it's seeing Standard play. I can't see Standard play, but I don't think anyone's playing it in Pioneer. So maybe EDH. I mean, it's in my Marchesa deck. But my number 8 is Twilight Prophet. So Twilight Prophet is from Rivals of Ixalan, 2 colorless and 2 black. It's a 2/4 vampire cleric with flying, which is fine. It has Ascend, where if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game. Not hard to do, as anybody who played Standard, even Limited, knows. It's pretty easy to get the city's blessing, and you can't lose it. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have the city's blessing, reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. Each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is that card's converted mana cost. So in a multiplayer format, this card is great. It's also a reveal. It's not a draw thing. Looking at you, Narset. So this card doesn't matter. Narset doesn't matter if a card like this is out. You get around those sort of can only draw one card a turn kind of cards. And there's a 2/4 flying body, which you'll take all of this on a 4 mana mythic. I love this card. The art is beautiful. I put this in my Marchesa deck, and it's just great.
It's really interesting to see a card go from spoilage, time in standard, left standard. What are you left with? And Ruben and I got to go to the Rivals of Ixalan pre-release.
Yeah.
And like, I remember talking about this card like in the streets when we're just like yammering on about mythics and how this card's cool and that card's cool. And I'm like, this is a reverse Dark Confidant. As soon as you turn it on, this thing is like unstoppable. It gets rid, it only loses Lava Coil or whatever. You can only get it. You can't hit it with 3 damage spells like Lightning Strike at the time.
Right.
This card had all the options to be sweet. It just not enough.
Yeah. And maybe it'll get new life, no pun intended in Pioneer, but it's definitely got a home in Commander. I mean, multiplayer, it's begging for that below. Like,
and that's why I definitely think this card is expensive. It is the most expensive vampire that exists right now.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, about $13 or so. So yeah.
Okay, I'm glad I got mine.
Yeah. If you got in early, you did good.
It was one of those that I got with like my tickets. When you go to a GP and you're like, I have 300 tickets. Then you go to a CFP table and that's your time to get all those commander rares where it's like, oh, drawn catacomb. Sure. you just, what else are you going to do with your tickets? It's when I get all my commander rares. Finance tip right there. So
there you go. All right. Let's move into number 7. Aaron, what is your number 7?
My number 7 was recently revealed to be a piece of a really wonky combo in Pauper. Now, you know how I feel about Pauper. I try, and I just can't get it up for Pauper. But this combo, this deck makes me want to try. My number 7 is Epicure of Blood.
Yeah.
So Epicure of Blood is from Core Set 2019. It's 4 colorless and a black. It's a creature type vampire, a 4/4, which is fine. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. Let me tell you about a card called Weather the Storm.
Right.
So Weather the Storm is a green instant that has 1 and a green with Storm, and it says you gain 3 life. So you play just a bunch of crappy cards. You play your Faithless Lootings, you play your Manamorphoses, your Dark Rituals, and you chain a bunch of spells together with this thing out. And if you don't have this thing out, you can exhume that baby back. And then you just cast a Weather the Storm. It's called The Perfect Storm, and it's wonky as hell. I'm sure Alex Ullman is rolling his eyes at me as we speak. But the minute I saw this combo, I was like, I need this in my life, and I just love it. I love Weather the Storm as a win con.
Yeah.
Storm is broken. Storm is a broken, busted in half mechanic. How busted? Wizards is like, we're going to make a new one. It's going to be like the most innocuous garbage card.
It's going to be green. It's going to gain life. It's not going to do anything. Oh, by the way, here's Epicure of Blood.
And Popper's like, hold my beer. Here we go. Blah, 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 kill you. Like, what?
You can jump through 85 hoops and play a Dirkwood Boar vampire to try to kill your opponent.
I love it. I love it so much.
And yet somehow they made it work. They made it work. They also put Storm in Walmart. I just want you to remember that.
Amen.
Never forget.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
They put Storm in Pauper.
I was handing out trick-or-treat candy the other day. I almost put some Dakmar salvages in the bowl. Hand out Snickers. Here's a Dakmar salvage. Start them out young. Yes.
Ruben,
children are the future.
What's your number 7?
Speaking of Rivals of Ixalan, we're going back through the all-star hits of worst sets of all time. I also have a Rivals vampire on my numbers. On my number, what is it? 7.
7.
My number 7. This one actually won a Pro Tour in the hands of Andrew Ellenbogen in that white aggro deck. And also has Ascend because it's Sky Marcher Aspirant. Evan's a big fan of a Savannah Lions. This is one of the best Savannah Lions you've ever seen. Yep. Sky Marcher Aspirant's a 1-mana 2/1 vampire soldier from Rivals. It does have Ascend, so that when you get the City's Blessing, it has flying. And so early, it's just a 2/1 that attacks for 2, like you do when you're a mono white aggro deck. And then later in the game, once you get to your 5th or 6th land, you get some vampire tokens, you get your Legion's Landings and your Histories of Benalia. This thing can fly over the top for the last couple points of damage.
Gosh, this card was so good. This card is just it's Savannah Lines that can gain flying later. This would have been like the ultimate chase rare back in the day. Nowadays, it's like, it's fine. Guess we'll go in the white deck.
Good uncommon.
It's a good uncommon. It's a fine card in the white deck. And I'm like, no, man, this card is like super pushed and great for what it is for 1 mana. The things you get for 1 mana these days is just getting better and better. And goodness gracious, this card is great. You really think Rivals of Ixalan is one of the worst sets?
It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. I don't know about one of the worst, but it's,
I think even Morrow's gone on record as saying that Ixalan was terrible.
Ixalan, and in of itself, sure, but Rivals in particular was kind of rough. I'm not gonna lie. All right, let's move on here to number 6. I'm gonna have a pick one of these days, I swear. Last one. Ruben, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is one of 2 hires on my list.
I'll handle this.
All right, what's your number 6, Aaron?
So y'all know that I'm into some crazy things. I play Storm. I play Belcher. I like it weird. But there is one card that is too dangerous, even for me. I can't do it. I'm scared. I don't trust myself with it. I'm going to screw it up. My number 6 is Balustrade Spy. So Balustrade Spy is 3 colorless and a black. It's a creature, vampire rogue, 2/3 with flying. When Balustrade Spy enters the battlefield, target player reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land, and then you put those cards into your graveyard. So this is a staple of Manaless Dredge, and so the plan is Manaless Dredge doesn't run any lands. So if you Dread Return this back, you deck yourself, and then you've got 1 turn to cobble together a win condition. I can't do it. I can't. It's too much. It's too risky. There's too many things that can go wrong. I can't do it. And so every time I jump into like a Manaless Dredge discussion, I have to play like the safer list. And I'm like, Aaron, got to do Balustrade. I'm like, I can't.
This sounds like a good way to completely stress yourself out. Like, oh my God, I got to do this, and then I go this.
I can't even watch somebody. Like, I've done Dredge Mirrors before where I'm on LEDs.
I'm sorry, I thought you just wanted to feel something when you played Magic.
I do, but it's fear. It's not
a shaggy dog story. You know the shaggy dog where it's like, I need a shaggier dog than that. I need a shaggier dog than that. I need a shaggier dog than that. Oh, that one's too shaggy.
It's too shaggy.
That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, like I get nervous even watching people go off at this. I was at, I think in Vegas actually. I was at an MCQ, and I was playing against a young man on Manaless, and he was doing it, and I literally was like, I couldn't do it. It was like I had to do like the scary movie. Like, I couldn't watch. It just gave me anxiety, and I just don't trust myself. I just don't trust myself with it.
It's a card that you're all in, you know?
Yeah.
It's like the people who play Belcher. You're like, really?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the Magic experience you signed yourself up for? You paid $40 for that experience, 9 rounds?
And Erin just said that she'll play Belcher, but she won't touch Balustrade Spies.
It's different.
Wow. That's okay. That's a wagon to hitch to.
Maybe one of these days.
Okay. We're over here to number 5. Oh my Lord, I got one.
And
it's really good though. It's super duper good. And it is one of those cards that it doesn't matter more or less what it does. If you can sacrifice a creature for free, you know it's going to be good and or scary, and especially when it's just a 1-drop in the form of Viscera.
What?
Viscera.
Viscera, whatever.
You know, Viscera.
Yeah, Viscera.
Viscera is 1 black mana for a 1/1 vampire wizard that was a common in Magic 2011 and got to stupid prices before it was reprinted in Commander 2013. Sacrifice a creature, scry 1, which means look at the top card of your library. You may put that card on the bottom of your library. So this card was good, clean, efficient. This was made for Sam Black to take it and run with it. This card was a part of various forms of the sacrificey aristocraty thing that happened here for years.
Yeah.
Yes, this card has seen tons of play for a good reason.
My She-Ray deck. I mean, I will never get this. You know, you look at the sack outlets we get now, we don't get anything close to this. We got to pay for it. You got to tap it. I mean, we didn't realize how good we had it until, you look at what's out there now.
Right.
Didn't they give us back Bolt in 2011?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how Carrion Feeder was Evan's #1 zombie of all time, and this is the best. This is the best impression we've seen of a Carrion Feeder ever. There was a long time where we didn't have a 1-mana sack outlet in Modern, let alone Standard.
Yeah.
And Viscera Seer has been a central piece of a number of Collected Company, Birthing Pod, all those kind of decks. Anything that requires you to combo infinitely with your graveyard, this thing has been a part of. In addition to just being a value creature, a 1/1 for 1 that can scry.
Always been
Fix your
good.
draws later in the game, yeah.
All right. Aaron, what's number 5?
My number 5 was a really important character in the Ixalan story and was one of the first vampire conquistadors that we really met. And I loved this character. The fact that we had a female conquistador was really, really cool. I liked her storyline, but her card made for a really nice engine. I got the chance to play with this during our friend Ilian TV has a commander show that he does, and we got to pick commanders from Ixalan and show them off. And this was the one that I picked. And I was very, very impressed with this card. And I was running Daxos at the time. So it took a lot for me to consider replacing Daxos. And I almost did it with this character. My number 5 is Vana, Butcher of Magan. So Vana's 3 colorless, a white and a black. She's a legendary creature, Vampire Knight, 4/4 with Vigilance and Lifelink. You can tap her and pay 7 life to destroy a target non-land permanent. Activate this ability only during your turn. So she fuels herself. So, you can attack with her. She doesn't tap. And then you can, depending on how they play this, you can still on your turn just do something. And then, if you have any sort of life gain, she gives you life to keep this thing going. And so if you build your deck right, you've got a hell of an engine on your hands. And the art is beautiful as well. Shout out to Vulcan Vaga. And I just really, really love this card. And again, just a really great take on vampires in Orzhov.
It's also just one of those cards that, it's an unbelievable bomb in limited. I've seen plenty of cubes that have lists in their Orzhov spots. It's almost unstoppable if you can't kill it the turn it's played, because once it starts killing permanents, and it's got vigilance, so it can swing in first and kill something on the way in. It's it just gets nuts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Really good to sneak in off of your Sorin, your 3-mana Sorin, which I've done a number of times in Standard.
Nice.
Really good in the higher life total formats, Commanders. Really fun card.
Excellent. Very nice. All right. Ruben, what is your number 5?
We're getting into the big boys now. And my number 5 has won a Pro Tour, has won several Grand Prix, has also just been a standout all-star for a long time in multiple formats. But let's flash back a little bit and talk about the first version. 7 mana was not what you wanted to be playing in the original Zendikar format. And so this card, while it looked, or the first iteration of this character, while it looked good, was not very good. Flash forward, we go back to Zendikar, we get Oath of the Gatewatch, and we get the rebirth of Kalidas in the Traitor of Get. And boy howdy did Kalidas get better. 2 colorless black gets you a legendary creature, Vampire Warrior, 3/4 with lifelink. Aaron, I'm terribly sorry about this next ability. If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, instead exile that card and create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Pay 2 colorless a black and sacrifice another vampire or zombie. Put 2+1/+1 counters onto Kalidas, Traitor of Get. This card just does it all. It can just take over a game by itself after a board wipe. And it also prevents a lot of broken things from happening on the other side of the board. It's seen a lot of play in Abzan and Jund and other fair mid-range, tap your 4 mana to play a creature and make your opponent deal with it kind of decks as well.
Yeah, this sees play in Modern. The Modern black-green decks love this. This is exactly the kind of haymaker that the black-green decks love. They love, they don't play very many creatures, but the ones they do play can very easily run away with the game, like Scavenging Ooze and this card. You're kind of one-for-oneing things anyways, and then the things you make can feed it. And so this card can very easily run away with games and is just terrifying.
This was my number 7. Because Kalidas is amazing. This was also one of the cards that, at first, this didn't see a lot of play. This didn't see a lot of, discussion. There wasn't a ton of hype around it. And then finally someone was like, no, look, and they put it in play and then they killed one of their creatures and got a 2/2. And you're like, oh, and then they sacked it and made him a 5/6 lifelinker. And it was like, oh my God, what are we doing?
I remember the first time I saw this card, I was more impressed by the flavor. I had never seen anything like this before. The idea that vampires could be working, if I understand the lore correctly, the vampires of Zendikar believe that the Eldrazi created them to some degree.
Were 2 factions of opposing vampires, and the Get vampires, of which Kalidas was the blood chief of, were like the poorest and like the worst off.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were at odds with Drana when the Eldrazi came to town. And basically they were like, well, our life sucks anyway. Might as well become Eldrazi.
Well, I seem to recall that like they might have had something to do with their origins as well. But needless to say, they surrendered themselves, and he has like Eldrazi bits or something. And so that was something that was something I'd never seen before. And I remember the first time I saw that, my mind was just blown, where it was like, oh, that's coming out of him. Like, holy crap. And I wanted to know so much about the Drana Kalidas feud, and that's really what hooked me in the story.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. Oath of the Gatewatch, kind of meh, but I'll take,
well, it's another one on our adventure of not the greatest sets of
We're going back. I mean, there's a chance to do it right.
It's true.
That's right.
I hope they don't screw it up. Move on here to number 4. My number 4 is another card that was huge, huge, huge in any deck that sacrificed things. This was practically Sam Black's invitational card. This card, my God, this card is still $3-something, almost $4 for this uncommon that they printed 3 times. But if you're going to think of like what was the first, real big aristocrats deck, what did it rely on? A little 2-mana guy named Blood Artist. Blood Artist is a black and a generic mana for a 0/1 uncommon, originally from Avacyn Restored. And it is a vampire that says whenever a Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I thought this card was bad when I first saw it. I was like, this card is blood, it's whatever. I mean, it's trash, like limited garbage.
Oh,
no. It just happens to run one of the best archetypes in years. Got it.
Yep.
Yeah. And even this, it's like, you look at, we will never get this again either, where it's like, you'll get a Falcon Wrath Noble, for like 3 and a black, or like you'll get, some of the other overpriced things, but like you will never get it this good again.
They tried giving us this again with Zulaport Cutthroat.
Right.
And then that didn't turn out great either.
Right. So now that's it.
So we're done. You get this on a 4/4 for 6 now.
Yeah. And God help you if you put them together. Like, the ability to give black this reach, the ability to break the creature mirrors, the board stalls, I can't tell you how many times someone's played like, I run a Meekstone in my She-Ray deck. And people are like, oh, well, you can't attack with your creature. And you're like, oh, I don't need to attack to kill you. And just go over their heads. And it's insurance. It keeps you afloat. It gives you a life buffer. You can drain other people. It's just beautiful. And it's insurance. If you are playing an aggro deck, people want to board wipe you. You might want to rethink that, because that board wipe could very well kill you.
Yep.
And I love the painting in the background, the actual...
Yes, that's an Easter egg. Like if you look really closely, that's blood. I didn't know that for the longest time. And you look at the corpse hanging in the background, it's pretty brutal.
Oh my God. All right. That is super duper cool. Ruben, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is a card that we talk about in reference to other cards that have been printed, as in, this is the new this. Basically, whenever you get a cheap card that has a bunch of really good keyword abilities on it, it's the newest version of Vampire Nighthawk. Vampire Nighthawk is colorless black, originally from Zendikar and reprinted a gazillion times because it's so popular. It's a vampire shaman. It has flying, death touch, and lifelink. Sees a bunch of play in a bunch of different, or saw a bunch of play in a bunch of different artifacts, from Jund to even control decks. Devotion used this card. It's just all over the place, and it's just it's another one of those just solid creatures. It's still in the cube to this day, it's just an amazingly good card.
Yeah, I ran this I played Black Green Rock during Innistrad Standard, and this was just a fun. Here you go, and like it's just a nightmare to deal with. It gives the burn decks fits, and so it's just this shrieking. It's incredible. I love it so much.
I always enjoy. Even though, like, I recognize how dangerous it is, like, I'm always thrilled when you see those new watermarks, those new, like, oh, wow, we're up to this. Oh, God, we're getting this for that amount of mana. And, for Zendikar, when Vampire Nighthawk showed up,
for sure,
I was like, oh, my God, for 3 mana, it does all of those things? That's insane. And I was like, black gets all that efficiency? Big conversations at the time. Oh, my God, this was my number 8, because this is absolutely one of my favorite vampires of all time. They haven't put this thing in standard since Magic 2013.
Yeah, not legal in Pioneer.
No, and I don't expect them to put it back either because the efficiency is there. And that's okay. You know, this is the watermark of, okay, this is as good as you're going to get.
This is safe for Pioneer Masters when they come out with Pioneer Masters. But yeah, you're right. I don't think Standard's not going to get Vampire Nighthawk anytime soon.
Don't really want it, honestly.
Sure.
Aaron, what's number 4?
My number 4 is a character that won hearts all over the Magic community. This is the brainchild of Allison Lures. You know, back when we still credited her for her work, you know what I'm saying?
When we could.
This was her baby. You know, this was a really neat take on Black. You know, I was a little worried when we went to Kaladesh because I'm very much a Black mage. And, you know, I loved being on Shadows over Innistrad. You know, I loved all of that darkness. And so I was really anxious to see what they were going to do with Black here. And they created the Aetherborn, which was a really neat take on Black. You know, the idea of sort of being life vampires, kind of agender, and no character, you know, summed this up better than my number 4, which was Yahenni Undying Partisan. So Yahenni is 2 and a black. They're a legendary creature, Aetherborn vampire, 2/2 with haste. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, anyone through any means, put a +1/+1 counter on Yahenni. Yes, Henny. Sacrifice another creature. Yahenni gains indestructible until end of turn. This is a staple of Voltron magic in Commander. You know, it's very easy to get this thing really big, throw a Blade of the Blood Chief on it, and have a gay old time. But this card is just brilliant. This character is brilliant. There were so many people that were made to care about this card in a way that they didn't care about other characters. You know, the Aetherborn kind of had a limited shelf life coming out of the gate. And so to follow Yahenni's journey, even to their last moments, was just heartbreaking. And this was just one of the, you know, when I think of just well done characters, you know, this one really, really sticks out to me in a way that not many have before.
I agree. I wish that this card had done more in Standard. Also, another free sack outlet.
And a lot of people forget this is a vampire.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, the Aetherborn, certain Aetherborn can siphon the life out of others, and that's their version of vampires there in Kaladesh. And you're right, really just an interesting take on how vampirism can work in Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, the idea that they're sort of always dying and they're kind of aware of it. And it's
life's a party, you got to live it up.
Yeah, super fascinating. This card is one of those cards that I was like, there's just too many words on it not to be great, you know? Like, it's sort of the questing beast thing where you're just like, there's so many words in this card. Right. It has to be sweet, right? Yeah. And it just didn't kind of fit where you needed it to.
Yeah. It didn't have the pieces around it. We're getting a couple of those today where it's like, these are really good cards in certain environments, but there's not enough to feed to Yahenni, and not enough to feed to some of these aristocrat style cards to be able to make them take off like other sack outlets have.
There wasn't sort of a Lingering Souls-esque type card that could make a bunch of creatures you could sacrifice to it and so on and so forth. All right, so let's move on here to number 3. Breaking the rules because I can. I'm not going Leviathan or anything.
I'll be the judge of that.
I guess you will. But my number 3, I felt like I could not make a top 10 vampires list and not have a Sorin card on it. Because Sorin is the vampire planeswalker. He's very well known as a vampire. He makes vampire tokens. He is the vampire dude. I was like, all right, I'm fine. I'm going to give him one. I don't want to be obvious. I want to give him the sort of the last one they made. I feel that's a little over the top obvious. So I went back and I looked and I was like, okay, what kind of feels like a card that was like super good, super impactful, super strong, didn't break anything. Everyone remembers super duper fondly, and is a card that is kind of quintessential Sorin. Well, Sorin comes from Innistrad. So Sorin, Lord of Innistrad, would be the quintessential Sorin for me. A black, a white, 2 generic mana for a 3 loyalty mythic planeswalker Sorin that has +1, put a 1/1 black vampire creature token with lifelink onto the battlefield. -2, you get an emblem with creatures you control get +1/+0, or -6, destroy up to 3 target creatures and or other planeswalkers. Return each card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control.
I like it. Good choice. I like this one. This is also the Sorin. This is also the dual deck Sorin when he had his famous duel against Tybalt, I guess. don't think that one adds up. But this is only one of 2 cards that have the word Innistrad in the title. The other one being the soul of Innistrad. And when you talk about Innistrad, you can't really do so without talking about vampires. And so I really like this choice. Well done.
Thanks. And go ahead.
Now, if there was a Sora Nahiri dual deck, I would play the crap out of that.
Yeah.
Like, I was very invested in that feud.
I need that Sora Nahiri dual deck.
Every duel ends with somebody gets put in the wall.
Skin in the wall.
In the wall. Out you go. But yeah, Sora Lord of Innistrad was one of those cards that was, like, I think clearly good. It wasn't like it was crap, but it did, I think, take a little bit for people to realize, that emblem is kind of insane, right? Because it pumps your team forever, even if you play another one or you
Black-white tokens, I think, was a theme in Innistrad Standard, and this card was definitely one of those, like, gotta kill it now, otherwise you'll never hear the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, this was in Dark Ascension with Lingering Souls, so it was
Lingering Souls and Intangible Virtue was also in that format, and so tokens were a thing.
Yeah, it wasn't Intangible Virtue banned in Block.
Intangible Virtue and Lingering Souls were both banned in Block Constructed for that Pro Tour.
Hilarious. Ruben, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is the second of 2 hires that is on someone else's list.
Oh boy. Aaron, what's your number 3?
So you may have noticed that my top 5 are all named characters that really, really had an impact on the story. And so we're starting to get to the really heavy hitters, the ones that have stuck out the most, the ones that have seen play in multiple formats, the one that we still talk about, the ones that we root for. And my number 3 is just an iconic character that I had the pleasure of voicing in the Voice for All series. She made a huge impact in Standard. You can occasionally find her seeing play in Modern as well. My number 3 is Olivia Voldaren. So Olivia Voldaren is 2 colorless, a black and a red. She's a legendary creature vampire with 3/3 with flying. You can pay 1 and a red, and Olivia deals 1 damage to another target creature. That creature becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. Put a +1/+1 counter on Olivia. And you can also pay 3 and 2 black and gain control of target vampire for as long as you control Olivia Voldaren. I remember the Jund mirrors in Standard, and it basically boiled down to who could stick in Olivia first, because she runs away with games. She was a great answer to Lingering Souls and a lot of the little creatures that were in the format. We had Mana Dorks, we had Aristocrat decks. She just fires away at them like a little turret gun. And then for the bigger things, give her a turn. So she'll hit you for 1. I'll come back for you in a minute, and then you pay 5 and you steal it. So you were stealing Thrag Tusks, you were stealing Restoration Angels, you were stealing all those big things that you couldn't take care of the first time. And she gets bigger on the way as well. This is exactly what Jund wanted. These were great games when you had Olivia, and just an iconic character. This sort of bon vivant, that epic art by Eric Deschamps. Her coming back over Shadows over Innistrad. Her having this weird issue with Sorin as well. The Voldarens, that artwork I just can't say enough about that artwork. And I just love this character so much. And I hope we get to see her again.
This was my number 6.
This was also my number 6.
There you go.
Very cool.
We're all on the same page. I mean, Olivia ran Standard.
Yeah.
It might be the vampire that's seen the most Standard play. It's because it ran formats. I mean,
there was definitely an Olivia test where it was like, can you deal with this? If you cannot deal with Olivia, just pack it up. Because if I untap with this, it's over.
I think Sky Marcher and or Danto Vanguard is probably running really close, but I think it's close. Yeah. But Olivia Voldaren was definitely number 6 on mine as well. No doubt about it. Who could stick the Olivia? The format didn't start there, but the format kind of ended there. Where it's like, wait a minute. The most over-the-top thing you can do is to steal their crap from them. And in Olivia came.
Yeah, it was really funny to see how that format developed, because it was like level 0 was just play Olivia. Then level 1 was play something bigger than Olivia, but then level 2 was wait 2 turns to play your Olivia, right? And then it was just like Angel of Serenity, that's cute, it's mine now. You know?
It was definitely not like you could slam her on turn 4 if you wanted to, but the whole point was finding the right time. Like, kill everything. You've got 8 mana. Here's 4. I have 4 open.
Yep.
And then, like, God help me, and it's so good.
Absolutely, that card was awesome. All right, let's move on here to number 2. Ruben, what is your number 2?
We've talked a little bit. We've said the word aristocrats a couple of times already. And aristocrat-style decks, vampires lend themselves to that strategy because you say, sacrifice a creature, stuff happens, right? But you can't talk about aristocrats without talking about the aristocrat, Falcon Wrath aristocrat.
Yes.
Right. Is the aristocrat.
Yeah.
And has recently been errated to have a new creature type.
Yes.
Falcon Wrath Aristocrat is 2 colorless black red for a creature type vampire noble with flying and haste. It's a 4/1. It's Evan's second favorite 4/1 with haste. And it also has sacrifice a creature. Falcon Wrath Aristocrat gains indestructible until end of turn. If the sacrificed creature was a human, put a +1/+1 counter on Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. So flashback to Pro Tour Montreal and the Sandblackiest of Sandblack standard decks when you had the Aristocrats with Cartel and Falcon Wrath Aristocrat winning that Pro Tour in the hands of Tom Martell with the help of Lingering Souls, Doomed Traveler, Orzhov Charm, and several others. Just a really good, really solid card. Free sacrifice outlet, 4 damage, haste in the air. I mean, this card does it all.
Card was super duper dope.
Yeah, the art was always what blew me away about this. You know, the idea of sort of this white dress that's being drenched in blood, that she's kind of drinking it from the bottom of like kind of getting away. There was some unreleased art for Shadows over Innistrad that had an Eldrazi Eyes version of this, and I was living. I was so mad that they didn't release that or do anything with that, because that art is gorgeous. I have it on my computer somewhere, but yeah, just iconic art, great card, you know, just embodies what the Aristocrats were meant to do. And there were just so many things you could be doing this card. You could play it in Black Red Zombies, you could play it in an Aristocrats list. There was just no shortage of things you could do with it. There
was a whole sort of like repeating pattern through Dark Ascension that all of the mythics were just like underestimated.
Yeah.
And you know, there was the werewolf flip guy.
Yeah.
Huntmaster of the Fells. And it was just like, that card was insane.
Yeah.
But until the Pro Tour, literally no one played with that card. Finally, someone was like, wait a minute, Fountain Rang with Aristocrat is amazing. Maybe we should play with this mythic rare from Dark Ascension. And it's just everywhere all of a sudden. It was weird, seriously. Like the story was the same way. It was.
There's a reason why, you know, some people say that Innistrad Return to Ravnica Standard was just one of the best standards out there. You know, you just had these cards that were just, you know, I think of, you know, that standard Jund being one of my favorite decks ever. Of just, I loved those Jund mirrors with Garruk Primal Hunter, Dead Ridge Chant as like your mirror breaker, and like all those Rakdos Charm was Steam standard play. Like it was so good. Rakdos Keyroom.
Rakdos Keyroom.
Oh God, those were good days.
Fun. All right, Aaron, what's number 2?
So my number 2 was a card from Innistrad, a character that we had heard about. And the nice thing about these supplemental sets, like the Commander sets, is that you get the opportunity to give cards. You give a name, a card, you know, a character you've heard about. You get the opportunity to bring that character to life or to unlife or death, as you will. And this was the progenitor of the Markov line, you know, Sorin Markov. You know, this was also another really important character, a nightmare in Commander. I think it was banned in like French Commander, one of the weird like offshoots. My number 2 is Edgar Markov. So Edgar Markov is 3 colorless, a red, a white, and a black. He's a legendary creature, Vampire Knight, 4/4 with Eminence. Whenever you cast another vampire spell, if Edgar is in the command zone or on the battlefield, create a 1/1 black vampire creature token, first strike and haste. And whenever Edgar attacks, you put a +1/+1 on every single vampire you control. Holy cow. I mean, just this card is incredible. And Eminence, you know, before Eminence, we had seen very few examples of commanders that could do things in the command zone. You know, you wanted to get them out as soon as possible. But with this card, you're really okay with it just being there because it makes 1/1s. And then when it finally does its thing, those little 1/1/2/1s are suddenly very, very big. And first strike and haste. And so this is another card that you need to deal with the minute it comes out, runs away with games. A really great homage to this character. It had to live up to the hype. You couldn't make Edgar Markov bad. And they definitely didn't do that. And the artwork, the idea of having all these people fawning over him, putting him in his armor is just so iconic.
So, hey, Aaron, do you have any hires on your list?
Yeah, I have one. Oh God, I'm sorry. Oh shoot.
It's okay. It's okay. No, sorry. It's fine. I definitely want to keep it. I thought you did a great job explaining the card. It's my number 1. It's fine. Not a big deal. No biggie. It's fine.
Okay.
Edgar Markov is unbelievably iconic, super cool, super exciting. This is the card that, like, if I'm building a vampire deck, I start here, you know? Like, I don't go anywhere else. I'm like, let's go with Edgar and build out from there and see what we can do, because Edgar is sort of the, you know, the master of the bloodline or whatever.
Absolutely.
Let's give it up to the man himself. So still great. Still number 1.
Card is terrifying.
In my heart, and number 2 in Aaron's. It's okay. Move on here to my number 2, which I have a feeling is Ruben's number 3. I guess we'll see. Here's a card that One of those cards that, first of all, it didn't get a ton of, sort of fanfare when it showed up. Now, it started seeing a lot of play really quickly, don't get me wrong, and it's seen play pretty consistently over the years. But I think sort of just in the past 3 to 4 or maybe even 5 years, you begin to see how crazy good Bloodghast is and how great you can use triggers and fetch lands and tricks and sacks and whatever to get the most value possible out of this crazy 2-drop from Zendikar. It's still amazing. It's like $15 from Zendikar, $11 Myconic Masters. Anyway, Bloodghast is 2 black mana for a 2/1 rare vampire spirit. It can't block. It has haste as long as an opponent has 10 or less life, and it has landfall of whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may return Bloodghast from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you don't always need to block if, to be impactful and awesome on the board.
I try to pick vampires or cards that I haven't put on other lists before, because obviously I have a great appreciation for Bloodghast. And so, you can sacrifice them all to Dread Return, bring back a Sun Titan, grab a land, get them all back. You can even do kind of fairish things. You can play just mono black Pox. You can just play small Pox and be like, okay, we sacrifice each other creature, fine. I'll go ahead and bring mine back. How about that? Or you can pitch things knowing that you'll get it back. I mean, the range of things you can do with this card is just unlimited, and it's brought me a lot of joy. And obviously, I need no excuse to use a Bloodghast.
This was, of course, my number 3.
There we go.
The most ubiquitous of the vampires, I think. My favorite application of Bloodghast, I think, has just been in the blue-black, Perilous Vault control decks.
Oh my God.
Where you would just play it as a 2/1 in the mirror, and then just every time they killed it, you just bring it back, and then you'd wear them down, wear them down, wear them down. And
that's what you got to do.
It was absurd.
It also doubles as creature removal. If you're playing Modern Dredge, Modern Dredge is probably the most aggressive strain of Dredge. You're always turning them sideways. And so every time they'll block, you're like, okay, conflagrate the rest. Right. You pitch it to conflagrates. I mean, you could just do so many dumb things with it. Zombie Infestation was one.
Right.
You just whoop, whoop, make a zombie. Here's your life from the loam. Get them back. So many uses. I love it.
There's a real sort of dirty feeling when you play a land and you go get 4 creatures out of your graveyard and you put them on the battlefield.
Oh yeah. There's a feeling of, there's an inevitability there. I've taken so many moto screenshots, back when Faithless Looting was legal, of you would do your thing and then you'd happen to discard 2 and then you'd have 3 on turn 2. It's beautiful. And just seeing the triggers line up, your opponents are like, uh-oh.
You get that feeling. You usually get that feeling from Vengevine or Arclight Phoenix or something like that, but Bloodghast,
or when they have the haste.
It's
so good.
This card started to get really crazy expensive before they finally reprinted it in Iconic Masters.
Yeah.
It was like $20, $25 a copy, and it's not necessarily cheap these days, but at least it's affordable.
At least reasonable.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on here to our number 1. My number 1 is Edgar Markov. Ruben, what is your number 1?
So my list, I wanted to see what vampires have won Pro Tours. What vampires are still in the Magic the Gathering online cube. There's only one that has done both. So my number 1 is Adanto Vanguard. Adanto Vanguard is a colorless and a white for a 1/1 vampire soldier. It's an uncommon from Ixalan. As long as it's attacking, it gets +2/+0. And it has pay for life. Adanto Vanguard gains indestructible until end of turn. A staple of the mono white and red white aggro decks of the format. You really couldn't shake a stick without seeing Adanto Vanguards on turn 2 pretty much everywhere. One of the most aggressive 2-drops in recent memory for white. Not very good at blocking, but you don't really want it to. And so if you're not attacking with your Adanto Vanguards, things are going wrong for you anyway. Just a really powerful card. Obviously, combos really well with Knight of the Ebon. What's the new card? Ebon Legion. Which was a good 1-2 punch for a little while vampires were super popular for about 3 months before they rotated out of standard. Adanto Vanguard, it sort of snuck up on me that it's my number 1 vampire, but it's my number 1 vampire.
Am I here? You could Adanto Vanguard? What?
Yeah.
I mean,
this is happening. This is
a hill to die on, I guess. All I know is, look, Wizards, I felt
Can't prove me wrong. So
there was something with M20 that Wizards was like, okay, we're not sure if vampires are any good, so let's give them like the sickest Planeswalker and the sickest 1-drop, so you can go 1-drop Ebon Legion, 2-drop Odonto Vanguard, because Odonto Vanguard is clearly not playable unless you have a sick 1-drop and an insane 3-drop Planeswalker. Obviously, that's not the case, but it felt like it at the time because you could immediately turn on.
It only won a Pro Tour as a 4-of before that was possible.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I remember playing mono white Approach of the Second Sun. Don't judge me. Shortly before rotation, and we had 4 copies of that in the sideboard for the control matchups because you were never going to resolve a Second Sun, but they would board all their creature removal and be like, here you go.
Love it.
What I'm saying is that I don't necessarily think that Wizards felt that that was a Pro Tour winning card, Odonto Vanguard.
They might not have felt that.
Yeah.
And so they gave us Ebon Legion, which is so perfect for the 1-2-drop, pay for life, make it bigger, so on and so forth. I think that's sort of part of that, that parcel of here's your awesome vampire deck in case it didn't work, when in actuality it worked just fine.
Right.
Which is fine too. All right. Aaron, what is your number 1?
So I've mentioned, a couple characters that are sort of progenitors of their line. We talked about Olivia Voldaren and the Voldarens. We talked about Edgar Markov and the Markovs. We talked about Vana being a important part of the Vampire Conquistadors. Yahenni being one of the more notable characters of the Aetherborn next to Gonti. But, if we're going to do a vampire list, and if we're going to go all the way back to the one that really, really, really started it all, I can't think of a vampire that meant more to me and that creates more nostalgia for me than my number 1, which is Baron Sengir. So Baron Sengir is 5 colorless and 3 black, a summon legend. Remember when cards were summon legend? With flying and 5/5. Whenever a creature is put into the graveyard, the same turn Baron Sengir damaged it, put a +2/+2 counter on Baron Sengir, and you can tap Baron Sengir to regenerate target vampire. The father of the Sengir vampires, his ability is sort of a juiced up what the Sengir vampires do, the idea of killing something or even damaging it. +2/+2. He had his own family of Irini and Grandma Sengir, come on. And so, I remember being a kid and just being in awe of this card and just looking at this card in my little plastic case. It wasn't worth anything, but, just going 8 mana and everything it was able to do. Baron's up there.
This was my number 9. Again, one of those, I can't have a top 10 vampires and not have Baron Singer on it. This card, first of all, a +2/+2 counter. That's nice. That's some beautiful 90s-esque design right there.
Yeah.
The weirdness that it went back and it got creature types. It got a creature type of vampire noble. Now it's a noble. But due to the way that its activated ability works, you have to tap to regenerate another target vampire, because at the time it was a legend. It wasn't a vampire. Does that make sense? It was weird. It doesn't matter. The point is, Baron Singer was awesome. Grandmother Singer is amazing. Quick thing, if you didn't know, she was stuck in the Apocalypse Chime for 10,000 years, and that's why she looks like that.
Let Grandma go.
Yeah, Grandma went crazy in the Chime. Let Grandma out of tower. She's insane. But Baron Singer is sweet. I 1000% believe we're not going to make it 2 years without seeing a brand new version of Baron Singer that doesn't suck, that is exciting, that leads a commander deck, that showcases somewhere in some sort of product that we're going to make. It's like they've hinted at it too much and we waited too long, and I am ready to see it.
That sounds like a vampire bet.
You gave me through the end of 2021.
I'll give you to the end of 2021.
All right, done.
I'll do that.
Mark it down on the
shake on it.
On the great pie bets in the sky.
Yeah, the vampire. That's another one that I'm willing to take a pie to the face for. Is if we see another Baron Sengir-esque style character make a comeback, I'm happy to take that one for the team. Absolutely. I like that one, and I like that we started the list with Sengir and we ended the list with Sengir.
Absolutely.
I'll take it. And that was our top 10 vampires. You will see them on the screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Aaron's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about. And we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-hosts. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you. And unlike most of the vampires on this list, this show didn't suck.
I was just about to do that. Get out of my head.
We did it.
Yay, we got there.
Yeah.
We'll go to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching or listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at MagicMikes, on Twitter at MagicMikesCast, our Magic Mike subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Talk to us privately at MagicMikesPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMikesPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes or Spotify, or join us here next week. Same time, same place for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.